Hey everybody, it's Jen. I am coming to you to give you an overview of the energy for March 2023. And this actually kind of feels like I can finally give an overview of the energies for what the rest of the year is going to be like. However, it will also be changing um, almost every month just because the energies right now are so big. So I'm going to apologize in advance because I don't know how long this call is going to be. I would suggest getting a notebook and a pen and taking note if something kind of gives you a little aha, or just being aware of how this energy lands for you, and then how to then work with the energy that is showing up, because this is a lot about our personal experience and being intentional within our own actions. So there's different aspects to this, and you guys know I always say that the astrology is like a weather report, right? So it's just like if you were to look on the news, it's going to be cloudy outside, maybe chilly, grab a coat, right? It's going to be raining, you may want to wear a rain jacket, or you may want to take an umbrella with you for the day. The astrology is kind of the same way. And I feel like everything is changing, and the astrology is even changing. And I know I said this months ago, but like this is when it begins to change. Okay. So yes, we're still looking at the astrology. Yes, I'll be talking about the main planets. But also one of the things that I've noticed personally is when I first started looking at astrology, everybody that was an astrologer really paid attention to more of the personal planets. That never really felt right for me. Okay. I always felt like we needed to look beyond that. I felt like we needed to be looking at um, the outer planets as a whole, and how they work together for us and with us, and show us the energies um, from a grander standpoint. Now, again, that being said, with the messages that I've been getting, we're looking at this as a galactic experience now, instead of just an Earth experience. And it's hard to even explain that as I'm saying it. So I'm just going to go back to some of the basics. So the personal planets, this is stuff that most people, if you look at astrology, this is what most people would know. If you hear somebody say, what is your sign? They're talking about your sun sign, right? So your sun is usually what people know. This is like back in the day where you'd look in the paper and find your birthday, and that was your sign, right? So this is your sun sign, and some people call it your star sign. That is your main, like, I'm a Capricorn, right? That's your sun sign. But then we also know that our moon and our rising sign really makes a difference as to like who we are, how we show up in the world. The moon is our emotions, right? So then we have the sun, the moon, and our rising sign. The other personal planets are Mercury, which is about our communication, and Mars, which is the way we do action. And then Venus, which is our love, right? Our emotions, our emotional body, the way that we receive love, give love, the way we receive data from outside, and then the way that we process that through, right? Because if we're here on this planet to experience human experience and love, then that's what it is. The social planets are considered Jupiter and Saturn, which you guys have heard me talk about both of those before. Jupiter expands everything, makes everything bigger. Saturn is the great teacher. This is the one where I talk about Saturn being like the teacher that was really, really hard, but everybody like that went through that class knows the answers to what they need, and they know how to apply whatever they've learned in that class, right? Now, the outer planets are the ones that I personally feel make such a big impact on us, especially as we look at things from a galactic standpoint. So if you're into energy and energy healing and Reiki, and like all of the things, right? And you are understanding that there's a 3D into 5D experience that we're all going through. This is where I feel like the outer planets become more personal, even though in the past they haven't been looked at as personal. They were like, this will kind of affect the overall scheme of, the generations of your life, but it's how they're interacting now with all of the other planets that are really giving us more of a galactic experience. And that being said, what my guides have been showing me, and even as I'm talking about this right now, one of the things that my guides have shown me lately is that yes, we are this galaxy, right? And if anybody that has taken science probably has had to build the solar system, right? The planets, and then you put all of them together: Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, Earth, Sun. Like, you put them all together, right? And then you create the solar system. That is one system within the other galactic systems that are all working together. So it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. But that being said, I feel like it was important to kind of start off this call today with that broad understanding of the astrology. Okay. So when we're looking at 2023 as a whole, we're moving into some really big, major changes. Okay. I feel like it gets kicked off now in March. I know a lot of astrologers were talking about all planets direct, there's forward motion. And if you remember, I was like, not yet. I wouldn't be looking at forward motion yet. I do feel like now that we're heading into March, we will be able to have some forward motion, but we want to be very aware of how we navigate through this upcoming energy. So the one thing that I can say is be very intentional with your actions, your thoughts, your words, especially with your actions, and be really aware of if you're reacting to things or if you're responding to things. I've actually taught on this before, but if it's a knee-jerk reaction, that usually triggers emotions. You're usually not like taking a step back and looking at it from an observer standpoint, and then being able to say, ooh, how should I respond to this, right? So if it's a knee-jerk reaction, a lot of times that's super emotionally charged and maybe not always the best way that we want to respond to things. So be really aware of that. Some big players that I'm seeing in March particularly is Jupiter and Chiron. This is a 12-year cycle and it's in Aries. Aries is always about me. Like, Aries is personal, very personal. And with Jupiter expanding things, Chiron is known as the wounded healer. So I feel like this is going to amplify wounds, but it's meant so that you can heal them. Now, you guys know that I've trained with Michael Lennox, and one of the things he always says is Chiron doesn't heal by making the wounds go away, but instead it helps us transform our perceptions around the wounding. Okay, so it's really going to be important to understand that because Jupiter is an expander, and to me, it feels like it's going to amplify. Now, if you're already have done your own work, you're probably not going to have the same experience of this. This is probably going to be where you're not only have you transformed your perceptions, but now you're growing beyond whatever that initial wounding was. But if you're new, or if you have clients that are still really stuck in 3D, this is going to be really intense. I feel like for the people that haven't wanted to look at their shadow, haven't wanted to do the work, haven't done any soul growth, it could get messy for that. Okay, especially with it being Aries, which is all about me. The great thing about Aries, though, also is that it starts something new. So this is definitely a new understanding with a broader purpose around the way we show up, the way that we heal, and all of those things. Jupiter in Aries could also be expanding who you are, like allowing yourself to expand into the broader purpose of maybe your soul purpose, right? Maybe you've been held back from that, and now it's time to really move into that new higher thing. The other thing that I noticed was a Pisces stellium in the middle of March, and it's like from the 8th to the 20th-ish. And that's Saturn, Mercury, Neptune, all in Pisces. Okay. Now, I do have to talk a little bit about Pisces energy because this is where we can get stuck in really like avoiding things or escaping things. The difficulties that we want to look at to overcome things in Pisces, especially with Saturn, Mercury, Neptune, right? Saturn being the great teacher. So if we're looking at this, what we want to overcome is avoidance or escaping things, victim mentality, self-pity. This is where like, I don't know what to do and I want somebody to just tell me. That's not going to benefit you. We're really going to need to step into responsibility and accountability when it comes to our own stuff. Okay. If you feel like I don't know what to do, of course it's fine to reach out and get help, but do that from a place of, okay, this is where I feel like I'm stuck. What can you help me see that will help me grow, right? Because anywhere that you're in victim mentality or not in your power is going to be really, it's going to be easy to get lost in the abyss of Pisces if you're not having that Saturn structure of responsibility and accountability. The interesting thing about Saturn and Pisces, what the original, what my guide said, and I think I mentioned this on the last recording too, something about making the magical manifest. It's kind of along the same lines, but what they said today when I was looking at Saturn and Pisces, it says, giving structure to the formless. So there's something in that about what are the things that the dreams that you have that right now are formless. But if you just had a little bit of structure and discipline, you could make your dream a reality, right? The good thing is Saturn's going to show us what isn't working, but where things aren't working, it's what do you need? Like what discipline do you need? And what actions do you need to take around what isn't working? Is it that you find a whole new place to work from? Is it that you have a whole new approach? Is it that you scrap it completely? Or is it that you just need to tweak a few things? And if you were just a little bit more intentional, right? Going back to the idea of being intentional, then it could really make it happen. Okay. So it's really interesting because there's this dichotomy of mystery and unknowable things in Pisces, but Saturn is bringing the structure to allow them to be knowable, which sounds really bizarre even as I'm saying it. The other really big energy that's happening is Pluto at these final degrees of Capricorn. Okay. Now, this is going to be toggling back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius, and we don't fully integrate Pluto into Aquarius until 2024. And I don't think it's until like the end of 2024, like November. So this next year and a half or so, we're going to be toggling between Pluto and a Capricorn and Pluto and Aquarius. So we're going to be kind of going back and forth. Pluto is always about long-term growth because this is a slow-moving planet. It stays in planets for a very long time. And the overall theme of this is balance of power in your own life. Okay, because Capricorn is all about the old structures, the old way of doing things. Aquarius is all about the new and the collective and all of that. So with this being at the final degrees, this is like, okay, so if I were to just say how this is going to feel for the next year, is if you are on like a marathon, this is the final stretch, but it's a marathon. So you've been doing this for a long time and there's still a ways to go, right? But you're at that final thing where it's the last lap or the last stretch of this long-term experience that we've been growing through, which was Pluto Capricorn. So we're going to be getting, again, a little bit of both as we move through the energy moving forward. It's going to be really interesting, guys, just to see how that's playing out. But basically, let's look at Pluto as Pluto's always the rising from the ashes, right? Like burning something down so that the new things can go. So if you imagine a fire, right? If a wildfire comes through, it burns down all of the things that were old, worn out. And then once the ash settles and once that all kind of clears, then the new stuff starts growing. We're in that stage where it just cleared out everything in Capricorn. that is not meant to go forward into this next phase of Aquarius, but now it's going to be burning through everything at the beginning of Aquarius that we don't need to take with us in the long term as well. So it's an interesting thing. Pluto is the cosmic purifier. So it's purifying everything as it moves through. It brings us really good stuff too, but it's also not always the most fun. And I feel like this final degree of Capricorn is probably where people are feeling like that. It's almost like exhaustion, like we're worn out. And there may be a little bit of hesitation because we aren't sure what's going to come, or like what's the next thing that's going to burn down, right? And I don't want to make it sound like it's something negative, because it isn't, but it's just knowing that that's what Pluto does. So basically, we want to look at the relationship with power and authority, and the balance of power and authority of your own life. This goes back to like sovereignty. And I know I've spoken on sovereignty before, making your own choices. Again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about reacting versus responding. But what I just felt like my guides, this is a sacred sovereignty. This is burning down anything, cosmically purifying anything that isn't allowing us to be in this free will experience while having the sacredness of sovereignty as a divine being on this planet. That's really big, guys. Like, I almost can't even wrap my head around that right now, because there's so many things that I feel like are coming up in the collective. Okay, so that brings me to, I think most of us that are here on this call have enough of an idea to know that when things happen, you roll with it, right? Like, you can look and see, is this, again, sometimes things are lessons, sometimes they're just stuff happens. But where are you at with whatever's showing up in your experience? Is it a lesson? Is it building a muscle for you? Is it helping you become more in alignment with the balance of how you regulate and take responsibility for your own life, right? How are you being open and available to receive the beauty that the universe can bring you, while being able to do the work that it takes, right? Like, you can have, oh my gosh, I just heard "when you wish upon a star." Like, in my head, that was what I heard was, when you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. But if you're working with the Saturn aspects, which is taking the responsibility to do the things to make it happen, right? So there's this beautiful dance there that's available to us. And then also understanding that with all of this Pisces energy, and especially with the stellium in the middle of March, and then Pisces is going to be, there's going to be a lot of energy in Pisces moving on into this next, because of the way that the planets are moving, there's going to be a lot of aspects of Pisces. So that energy is going to stay around for a little bit. And the good things about Pisces, right, are this is where we can really be compassionate. We find kindness. People are helpful, going out of their way to help somebody, right? Being adaptive and going with the flow, because Pisces is the fish, it's going with the flow. And a lot of creativity, right? Because this is the things that you can dream of, the mystery, right? But when we're in this human experience right now, and especially in between the 3D, 5D, people that are really stuck in 3D will probably have a tendency to go into the negative aspects of Pisces, which is feeling cheated, feeling like life isn't fair, being overwhelmed, not actually saying what you want. Like, we've talked about this a lot. Like, what do you actually want? What do you want in life? And the bad thing about not saying what you want is then being mad at everybody because they're not giving you what you want. But if you don't speak what you want, how is anybody supposed to know, right? That's a codependency thing right there. I mean, the negative side of Pisces is almost like codependency in a nutshell. Moodiness, escapism, being lazy. Those are all things that can be on the negative side of Pisces. Again, we're here to experience all of that, right? We can experience both. It's just be again, responsible for yourself in knowing, are you stuck more in the negative emotions, or are you able to, move into the higher frequency? Same with Aquarius. You guys have heard me laugh because I do have a lot of Aquarius in my chart too, which is, I always laugh and say it's like the Spock of the zodiac, because they're like, Aquarius tendencies are, unemotional or detached, sometimes stubborn. These are kind of what we would consider the negative. They overlook the value of learning from the past, don't necessarily like rules, but can be very overthinking, can be judgy. Usually there's an element of humanitarianism, but it can get lost in the noise of everything else going on. Whereas the higher frequency of Aquarius, the positive side of Aquarius, is being self-reliant, understanding that you can do things in an unorthodox way, and it creates an amazing experience for everybody. Really having good empathy, but also freedom and fairness for everybody, right? Like those are the good things about Aquarius. When you're looking at Aquarius bringing the water bearer, it's Aquarius brought water to all the people, right? So here, are you thirsty? Let me give you a drink, kind of thing. So there's all of these different aspects that are going to be playing out. And as I tune in with my guides, one of the things that I've actually been experiencing myself over this last week or so is feeling literally almost from moment to moment, like questioning, like, what is like, what is happening? What is this experience? And feeling like you have no idea what's going on, but then feeling like you know exactly what's going on, and then feeling like you can manifest easy, and then not sure if you can manifest at all. Like there's something in the energy right now where it's both. And it's like, I actually texted a friend of mine yesterday, and I'm like, I'm just going to sit with it, and I'm not going to do anything if it doesn't feel consistent for at least 3 days. And then, like, after 3 days, if it's felt the same every day, then I'll feel like, okay, now I know that that's an energy that I can trust, because the energies are so out of control. And again, it's part of adapting to the new energy particles, the new light vibration, the new light codes that are coming in, all of the things, right? Because we're in an entirely new experience in all aspects: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and galactic. We're becoming more attuned to all of the galactic frequencies instead of just the earth frequencies. And that's what we've kind of experienced up until now. So again, one of the things my guides have said multiple times, I feel like over the last few recordings, is that we are in an entirely new experience, and none of us have been here before. None of us on the planet. It's a different experience. So with that being said, I want you to know that the energy is probably going to feel like it's speeding up in March. It's probably going to feel very intense. And again, intense doesn't always mean something negative. I think we tend to think it's negative if it's intense, but I just want you to be aware of it, so that you can prepare yourself for it. I think rest, minerals, and again, I would be aware of how your emotions are. I'm going to shuffle some cards just to see if I can get a good ending for this call. Be aware of, like, if you're feeling like you're toggling from one moment to the next, try to stay grounded, try to tune into your energy and find the theme that's consistent, because there's so much energy, not only intuitively, but also empathically, that we're feeling. And I'm like, right now, what I feel like my guides are bringing me back to is last night there was a really terrible storm, and the wind makes everything feel unsettled, and it was extremely windy, right? So it's like that. It's like you might just feel like everything is extremely windy, and you may feel a little bit worn out from it. But know that there will be moments when the wind dies down and you can relax and reset and whatever, but also be careful not to make decisions when you're in a really bad windstorm. Okay, so the cards I pulled are from Angel Wisdom Tarot by 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗲𝗍𝗍. And the first card says sensitive, open-hearted, inexperienced, moody, new emotional experience, romantic encounter, social invitations or events, and heightened psychic abilities. Okay, the card on it has a mermaid. It's like the cup is overflowing in the water. I feel like the main thing that stands out to me about this is be aware of where you're feeling moody. And again, the inexperience, because we're all inexperienced in some level at the energy that we're in right now. Because again, what my guides have said is that we've never experienced this. So there's a learning curve that we need to deal with. And I just got chills when I said that there's a learning curve. So give yourself grace within that learning curve. The next card, it says compassionate, accomplished, charismatic, grounded, a great time of success. Everything turns out beautifully. So that I feel like is the main thing on this card, is don't forget that everything turns out beautifully. And more than anything, we need to remember the messages that have been coming through is that our thoughts, words, and actions create our reality. So where are you focusing your thoughts, your words, and your actions? What are you speaking over your life? And again, coming back to what I said at the very beginning of this call, what are you taking radically, like, are you practicing radical responsibility for the way you're reacting and the way you're responding to things? As much as you can, be aware of the reactions. I feel like, I don't know where this is in astrology. I'm sure it's there somewhere. I feel like there's something big about to break on the news. And I feel like it's ridiculous to even say that, because I feel like the news has been something big almost every other week, which is another reason that we feel exhausted, right? But I feel like there will be something that breaks on the mainstream. And I want to just say, if and when that does, just see it for what it is. Take a step back, observe what's going on, try to see it from an outside perspective. Don't get sucked into the trauma drama bullshit. Within that, also know that the personal things that are happening is the Pisces stellium and the Jupiter Chiron in Aries new cycle. That's a 12-year cycle. And knowing that we're really in a place where we can have profound healing if we're willing to look at the balance of power in our own life and step into sacred sovereignty. So that's it for today. Sending you guys lots of love, and I will talk to you all soon.